Horror stories. I will never forget the night when the city became a hell of blood and silence. I was in my apartment when an anonymous message on my phone urged me to look outside. Peering out, the sight froze my blood. Under the flickering glow of a street lamp, the mutilated body of a man lay on the pavement, his blood forming strange symbols across the concrete. Without thinking, I rushed outside, and within minutes, the scene had transformed into a living nightmare. I walked along the sidewalk, each step weighed down by fear. Around a corner, in a dark alley, I found a lifeless woman, her face twisted in horror. It wasn't an isolated incident. With every few steps, more bodies appeared. An old man, a young adult, even a child, each one bearing signs of meticulous violence, as if someone were trying to send a chilling message. The messages repeated themselves. Cryptic symbols marked every scene, and words written in blood covered the walls. The city I once knew was gone. The night breeze carried echoes of distant screams and sobs, and every elongated shadow made me feel like I was being watched. Clutching my phone, I tried to call the police, but the lines were jammed. With my mind spiraling into fear, I decided to keep moving, searching for anything that could explain the origins of this massacre. The park was even more horrifying. Bodies lay scattered across the damp grass, discarded without mercy. The sheer number of dead left me paralyzed for a moment. Silence pressed in, broken only by the distant wail of sirens and my own heartbeat. The symbols appeared again, alongside short phrases. The truth hides in the dark. Pay for your sins. Warnings of a twisted plan unfolding. With the night's chill sinking into my bones, I sought refuge in the city's quieter streets. I wandered through old industrial districts where abandoned buildings held forgotten secrets. In the shadows of a decrepit warehouse, I found a slightly open door. Curiosity and a desperate need for answers pushed me inside. The atmosphere was oppressive, the air thick with decay. My flashlight, trembling in my hand, illuminated walls covered in notes and newspaper clippings. Every article spoke of violent crimes from years past, each marked with the same symbols I had seen in the streets. The horror of this night was just the latest chapter in a long tradition of terror. As I moved through a narrow hallway, I heard voices in the distance. I hid behind a door, holding my breath. Two men were speaking in hushed tones, discussing something about cleansing the city and settling old scores. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream echoed through the corridor. Instinct took over. I ran. Through deserted streets, I fled, the sound of my footsteps blending with my pounding heart. The feeling of being followed grew unbearable. At an intersection, I stumbled upon the corpse of a young man, his face frozen in an expression of terror. The image seared itself into my mind. and the agony of not understanding this brutality pushed me forward. Sweat dripped down my face as I reached an abandoned factory district. The buildings formed a labyrinth of darkness. In one crumbling structure, I discovered a hidden room. What I saw inside stole my breath away. Bodies were meticulously arranged, stacked like trophies. Each corpse bore precise, almost ritualistic wounds, as if the killer had a message to deliver. At that moment, my phone vibrated. A brief, senderless message appeared on the screen. "We know who you are." The words burrowed into my mind, sending a surge of paranoia through me. Who knew my identity? Why me? The unease grew, and every shadow, every whisper of the wind became a threat. The notes and newspaper clippings still echoed in my thoughts as I tried to leave. But the terror clouded my mind. As I ran through the darkened corridors, I tripped, hitting the ground hard. When I looked up, a figure stood in the distance watching me. He wore a dark jacket, his gaze cold and calculating. For a split second, fear turned to sheer panic. The figure lunged at me without warning. The struggle was brief and brutal. The first blow knocked me unconscious, and darkness swallowed me whole. I woke up in a cold, windowless room. My wrists were bound to a chair, and the walls were stained with dark, dried streaks, silent testimonies of past horrors. My thoughts swirled in a whirlwind of confusion and dread. The last thing I remembered was that shadowy figure, and now I was at the mercy of someone who had no qualms about killing to keep the truth buried. Scattered around me were photographs, handwritten notes, and newspaper articles detailing murders from long ago. One note stood out, its words burning into my soul. "The city must be purged." That phrase sent an icy shiver through me. I realized then, this night's violence wasn't random. It was part of a twisted agenda, a personal vendetta against the corruption and hypocrisy of our society. Time became unbearable in that cell. Every minute felt like an eternity, with fear and despair mixing into a bitter poison. My mind drifted, replaying every detail of the night. The bodies, the symbols, the ominous message, the cold stare of my attacker. It all felt connected, and somehow I had been marked from the very beginning. The door burst open. The dark figure stepped inside. This time, his voice was as cold as the steel of a blade. "It's time to pay for your sins." Terror paralyzed me. As he approached, I saw an inhuman determination in his eyes. He raised his weapon, and in a moment that stretched into eternity, the gunshot rang out. The light flickered. Then everything went black. I don't know how long I was unconscious. When I finally woke up, I was lying outside the building, sprawled on the cold pavement of the industrial zone. The city's sirens and distant murmurs felt unreal against my pain. Staggering to my feet, My body ached, my mind flooded with unanswered questions. As I wandered the streets, I realized I had been both witness and victim to a cycle of violence beyond any ordinary crime. The dark figure had left his mark, and I knew I would never be able to forget that night. As the city struggled to recover from the massacre, I understood something chilling. The truth was darker than I had ever imagined. The symbols, the messages, and the bodies were all part of a carefully orchestrated campaign of terror, led by someone hidden among us. I never uncovered who was behind it all, but the warning etched into my mind will stay with me forever. True terror exists, and it can slip into anyone's life, leaving scars that never heal. Today, as I recount the story, my heart still bounds at the memory of that blood-stained night. The shadowy figure, the ominous message, the echoes of every death. They remain with me, a constant reminder that the most horrifying nightmares are the ones lurking in the shadows of our own existence.